Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the X handle, and I'm joined today by Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C. Macdonald on the X handle, Twitter handle, as I say, whatever it's called these days. And it is Thursday, the 12th of October. I think Aidan's just fresh from the dentist. You're looking all right for a man who's just been to a fearful trip to the dentist. Aidan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Survived as usual. It's always a keeping the ball in the corner job when you go to these things, Tony. You know how that is, but yeah, all good, mate. Happy to be here.
And as you can see, I'm in Herald Towers, so might be the sun shining in the window, so maybe a good thing. My face will be obscured day to day. That's a good thing. Sometimes, there you go. Anyway, guys, as you saw yesterday, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing has a new sponsor. That's MPH Group, and they specialise in plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathrooms. And the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trades specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. And if you opt for a service, every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway. So you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. So all the links, all the social media stuff, and all the links are in the description of this video and their phone number as well. So check them out if you're dreaming of a new kitchen et al. All the links are on there, but we thank MPH Group for their sponsorship of the pod. We appreciate it. Thanks very much, guys. Now, Aidan, it's never a dull day when we're talking about Celtic, and we woke up this morning to see that Celtic are keeping tabs on another Korean player, and that player is 23-year-old. Let me get your pronunciation of his name right here. In fact, where is it? Is it Jung, isn't it? Jung.
Jung Ho-Yeon, I believe, Tony. Looking at the rough pronunciation, I tried to do a wee bit of practice before we came on. I think anybody knows that pronunciation isn't my strongest. So I was always one that struggled with the Tom Rogic or Tom Rogic thing, Tony. I was somebody that always struggled with that. Never mind slightly more complicated names, but yeah, I think Jung Ho-Yeon, I believe, is roughly how you pronounce it.
Either Jung Ho-Yeon or Jung Ho-Yeon. We'll go with that one, Aidan.
Yeah. I would say Young's probably fine for the purposes of this discussion.
Yes, he's a 23-year-old defensive midfielder, and he could take the Korean contingent up to 4, because Celtic have signed they've signed Yang, and they've signed Kwon, all within the last year, but Celtic are reputedly keeping tabs on them. arrived from Suwon Blue Wings in January in a deal worth $2.5 million, and Yang and Kwon both arrived in the summer for a combined total of $3 million. But according to Football List, Young is next on the Celtic shopping list, and he's, as I say, he's a defensive midfielder. He currently plays for Gwangju, and he was also, here's an interesting point, Aidan, he was granted military exemption because he participated in the Asian Games and helped South Korea win the gold medal. So he's played 18 times in the K-League this year, and he was a big major contributor in helping Gwangju get promotion from the K-League 2 last season, and they're going well in the league this season because they're currently sitting in third position. So it's a market Celtic know well, having already a trio there. That would make it a quartet if Young comes in. What's your thoughts on that, Aidan? Early thoughts? Have you done a bit of scouting? Have you done a bit of digging and looked at him, or have you just gone with what's been reported this morning?
Well, just kind of looking at some basic stuff, Tony. Obviously, kind of central defensive midfielder, sort of occupy that number 8 role. Probably similar to maybe what we thought Awata was going to come in and do. I know he's then since featured at centre back, and then obviously not played a lot really this season overall. But seems like somebody that would be another option to sort of play in there beside as an alternative to or with Callum McGregor. I think you can't really have enough of those players because we always go on about how guys like McGregor, O'Reilly maybe sometimes play too much football. I think we've seen that sort of come to a head last season when McGregor picked up that injury. So that's kind of what like his rough position would be, Tony. The fact he's got the military exemptions are positive and will probably make him sort of a higher sought after player, because obviously that's a thing that might put off clubs signing a lot of players from South Korea could be that the fact is, if we've not done the military exemption anyway, that's something down the line you're going to have to lose them for. I don't know exactly how long it is, but a period of time anyway, at some point in their contract. So the fact that he's got that exemption is a positive. That was one of the reasons I think it was either with Kwon or Yang. Tony, I'm sure one of them had already completed their
Yes, that's right.
military duties as well, which was seen as like another positive from bringing them in. And I can't remember which one, but it was one of the two of them. Yeah, I think it would be an interesting signing, Tony. Once again, you've got Celtic's going to a market they've had, quite a good bit of joy in the Asian market overall. That is, of course, the Japanese players. I think Yang and Kwon was maybe still to see what they can do. Yang has looked positive in stages. Kwon's not really made an impact. It's still early days for both players, obviously. We're only at the second international break of the season. But sorry, Tony, did I break up there?
Yeah, you did actually, but it's fine. It's okay. I was going to say that lots of people, I hate using the word, but it's been pretty prevalent in the comments as well that this smacks of another project signing. Aidan, do you see it that way? Because you look at the likes of Yang and Kwon, and all their minutes have been limited, but O's the one who's played the most. Yang has played in fits and starts, and Kwon really hasn't featured at all. But as you said there, it's only the second international window, so there's still time for them to come to the fore. But is that something that worries you slightly about another kind of defensive midfielder coming in, another midfielder? Because Celtic seem to be well stocked for midfielders. And also, what does it say for the likes of Iwata and things like that? Is there writing on the wall for guys like him?
I think in terms of whether it's a project, Tony, 23, did you say? Is that right?
23, yes. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really cast somebody like that as a project signing. I would say it's maybe somebody not quite at their peak, but well into their career. And I appreciate in Asia in general, it's can be different with the whole university systems and players doing military duty early. That it's not necessarily he's been playing 50 games a season since he's been 16, 17, like he might be if you were picking somebody up from elsewhere or a Scottish player, for example. But I don't know if I would quite say he's a project, Tony, just because of his age. Really,
yeah.
I would say.
No, as I say, I'm loath to use that word, but
I'm not saying you're saying that. Obviously, but just there's been a general discussion, kind of in general, since this reports came out that he's maybe fallen into the project aspect. I don't know. I think just given his age and that in the profile, I think he would be somebody you'd be expecting to come in and challenge. Yang, yes, he's a wee bit younger, isn't he? So that would maybe fall into the project. I think Ortilio, for example. I think you see 2021 is it or something. He would maybe fall into that, but I don't know if I would put this player into that bracket, Tony, purely just because of his age. That's one of the main factors. But it will be. I think it's obviously a market Celtic feel comfortable scouting in. We don't need to go through and list all the players they've brought from Asia over the last few years through Ange Postecoglou, and then since Brendan Rodgers has come in, it's a market they also feel they can get quality in. What does it mean for guys like Iwata? It could mean maybe he is going to be heading out the door. The fact he is flexible to play in a few positions, Tony, might mean that he does stick around just because of situations like the centre-back crisis that we've seen this season. But you'd imagine for somebody like a James McCarthy, it is already probably over for him, isn't it? But a player like that, it's probably not going to work out. But there is a lot of players in the middle of the park that, despite us always going on about how you maybe need to get another sort of bit of quality in there is a lot of midfielders. So I'd imagine, as I seen, I think it was Andrew Gallion in the comments slightly earlier had said there'll probably be a busy window in terms of ins and outs in January. I think I could see that being the case, Tony, because there is still players that need to be brought in to develop the squad, but undoubtedly the first team group needs trimmed as well. I hadn't had a final count after that summer window, but there must be needing sort of 35 plus 36 players that you could class as first team options, even if they're not all regular in squads. If we're going to include guys like Mikey Johnson, etc. as well, Rocco Vata, and that, there's a lot of players and a lot of individuals in the middle of the park. Some that don't really seem to feature at all. So I think it'll be busy in January, I think, Tony, in terms of trying to rotate the squad ahead of probably another busy window in the summer. But for Iwata, maybe it could be coming at the end of him, which I would be disappointed if that's the case, because I think he's a very tidy player.
Yeah, indeed. Now, as I say, I don't like using the word project players. I just any signing that comes in, I think Celtic certainly signing with a view to being oven ready, that phrase oven ready as well. So we'll see what happens. But just lots of people sort of, I'm going to read some comments out here, Aidan, because everybody kind of wants their say. And I'll flick up a few comments here. Okay, we'll start with this one. Andrew Gillia, the project stuff is nonsense. It's a gathering of talented players. Well, we'll find out if they're talented players or not, won't we? If Young comes in, and we'll see what he's got to offer and bring to the table. Alan Robertson, is there a snobbery over Scottish talent? Are we saying that there are no players in this country who can offer similar? That's another argument altogether, and probably one that we could devote a whole morning briefing to. And then he comes back in and says, key question, has this guy been identified by Brendan Rodgers, or is this another club signing? Well, the manager might be able to enlighten us when he speaks to the media at some point, because I'm sure he'll be asked about him, Aidan, won't he?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And as much as I know there's a debate over the structure, how Celtic maybe recruit players, the fact there's not a director of football, after kind of means it's uncertain in how you would answer it, because if there is a director of football and a clear sort of hierarchy in terms of a recruitment structure outside of Mark Wall, who I appreciate as maybe a de facto sort of director of football in a way, if there was a clear designated one, then you could say there is a so-called club signing, but it's hard to tell fully, particularly since this will be the first transfer window that Rodgers will be able to plan in advance as well in January. In the summer, it's undoubtedly there was players that had probably been lined up, but he clearly had final say on them, as he stated in many press conferences. But Odin Thiago Holm, for example, he was getting rumoured to be linked to Celtic before Rodgers was announced. And I think after Rodgers got officially unveiled, or just before that, Odin Thiago Holm was confirmed as signing. So that was clearly at least one player who I would imagine was identified in advance. But so I don't know if this guy would fall into that bracket. I've seen a few people mentioning that Ange Postecoglou was a part of interest in him and he was at Celtic. I don't know if that's the case or not. I couldn't confirm or deny that. But given Celtic had a lot of interest in the Asian market before Rodgers came, I'd imagine it was a player that was on the radar. But I've got no doubt, Tony, that anybody that's coming in, the manager would have to be 100% behind them joining, because otherwise it's not going to be an effective structure, is it?
Sure. I totally agree with that. My concern, says Andrew Galea, is game time for those not involved on a weekly basis. That's always a concern when players aren't playing, isn't it? And Mark E. projects younger stars in the making and the club's best option for keeping up with the super wealthy clubs. Yeah, and we spoke about this before, Aidan. It's about getting young guys who can make their mark at the optimum time, and then obviously that's how the model works. The likes of Jota and stuff like that, and you sell them on for vast profits. We understand that. Hazel Finn coming in saying, I think we have enough midfielders. There are far more important areas that Celtic need to be looking at. Again, I think that's the manager will be all over that, because the January window could be really important, Aidan, in terms of your trying to obviously regain the league. Defend the league title, win the league title again, and also if you're looking ahead to building for the Champions League, because next season you're going to go from, it's a totally different structure with the Champions League. You're looking at certainly 8, possibly 10 games, depending on where you finish, and that's a big thing for Celtic, isn't it?
It is, Tony, the Champions League structure discussion, which inevitably always comes up, doesn't it? As a big factor, and it's going to be a real difference in terms of obviously the income Celtic can bring in, but also with the extra games and how it's not going to be set that you play every team home and away. That is going to be interesting. I think just in terms of the Scottish talent thing, I do understand why some people maybe feel there is a bit of a snobbery, and there's been prime examples of players that are going abroad and doing well. Lewis Ferguson highlighted as one. Aaron Hickey, I know he's came back now, obviously, to Brentford, but he went away. Josh Doig. These are all guys that have went to Serie A and done well, and there's going to be an argument should Celtic been in for them potentially, but I think it can be hard at times. In terms of current Scottish talent, they could come in and maybe do a job in this position. That maybe I'm being uneducated, but I can't really think of specific players could come in and fulfil that role in the middle of the park right now. There's probably arguments for other areas in the squad that you can maybe go and recruit in, Tony, but I don't know if there's anybody that comes to mind for yourself that could come in and play that sort of central defensive midfield role, number 6, whatever you want to call it, type position beside Cameron Egger in Scotland. So maybe that's why you've got a club are looking to other markets. But I think there's no doubt that if Celtic probably do need to start maybe taking chances on more younger Scottish players overall, if they're not going to be coming through the academy, because you always do have quotas that have to be met. And Callum McGregor, James Forrest can't go on forever, Tony. Eventually, they're not going to be available. Somebody like Scott Bain, who always kind of counts on that quote, eventually he's going to move on. So,
yeah, I mean, the players you mentioned, Aidan, as well, Aaron Hickey, Lewis Ferguson,
the
and Josh
academy's
Doig.
going to need to be improved in terms of the quality coming through. Oh, sorry, Tony. You just cut
Yeah,
off
you
there, sorry.
froze again. Aye, sorry, it's okay. See, the players that you mentioned there, Lewis Ferguson, Aaron Hickey, and Josh Doig, they've all enjoyed relative success in Serie A, and so I guess it's just about getting that part of the scouting department and looking around for top Scottish talent. And Celtic were linked with all of them, weren't they? Obviously, Aaron Hickey was at Celtic before he left to go to Hearts, but there were rumours of being linked with Lewis Ferguson and Josh Doig. So don't know who has the final say on that, but these guys have went abroad and positively thrived. So I think if you're doing your homework properly, there are Scottish players out there that you can go and get, and they will rise to that challenge, because those three, you look at those three, and you also look at the Scottish national team now as well. It's filled with players that have applied their trade at a really good level, and lots of Scottish players are now thriving, and that's why the Scottish national teams, where it is unbeaten, undefeated in the campaign so far with 5 wins out of 5, and obviously playing Spain tonight, only needing a point. So I think there's lots of positives about Scotland and the Scottish national game and Scottish players at this minute. So if other clubs, particularly Serie A and down south, are willing to look at Scottish players, then I think Celtic should be all over it as well. But that's obviously something that Brendan Rodgers might be keen on having a look at as well, and also promoting from within with the academy, I guess. But we seem to we keep getting told there's a plethora of talent there, but there's not many made that step up, has there? Stephen Welsh of late. Rocco Vata has been in and around the fringes, and obviously the well-documented one was Ben Doak, who's now plying his trade at Liverpool.
Yeah, there's been very little players that have came through, Tony, to be honest, that have featured regularly. Stephen Welsh is probably the only one you'd put into that bracket recently, and even then, the last 18 months, he's not played many games, has he? Probably having to go back to Ange Postecoglou's first season from when he was getting a decent run of games, and a lot of that could have been because of the limited options the club had.
Yeah. Now, a player that's been mentioned in the comments was Lennon Miller from Motherwell.
McGregor, Forrest, etc.
Lennon Miller from Motherwell, Chris Wanky.
Yeah,
been getting some rave reviews. So I guess Celtic should certainly keep tabs on these guys. I made a point of saying I think Scottish players, decent Scottish players from other clubs, should be persons of interest to Celtic. I say that all the time, and you should be all over it and scanning it and keeping tabs on it. So, and if they do develop it, a very alarming rate, then your radar should be on, shouldn't it? It should be turned on and thinking, okay, could you envisage him in the Celtic team? But I'm sure Brendan and the rest of the recruitment team are on that, but I don't know. You don't know about the kind of snobbery towards Scottish clubs, do you? I'm not so sure if that exists, but certainly in the past while, Celtic haven't really recruited from Scotland, have they?
No, they've not. You're right. I don't know if there's a snobbery, Tony.
Yeah.
Potentially, maybe they just. I just know at the moment, if we're just talking about the last year or so, I don't really know if I can see the talent to be able to come in and make an impact for Celtic in Scotland. Really, I'm sure there's some very young players that you could go in and sort of sign, but in terms of guys that come in and make a first team impact, I don't know if I'm sort of being uneducated, but I can't think anybody that could come in and play that role at the moment. So that's why I think the club have been looking elsewhere. In terms of the last few years, of course, you can go back to Lewis Ferguson, etc. as probably the most recent example. But in terms of right now, in the last year or so, I wouldn't say there's a snobbery. I just don't know if the talent's been there, Tony. But yeah, over the last few years, there's maybe a different argument, of course.
No, I'm not saying there's a snobbery. I'm just saying that's what outsiders are saying. But I think Celtic should always be across decent Scottish talent. I mean, they signed David Turnbull, didn't they, from Motherwell? He's had various impacts on the team and has flitted in and out of the first team, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. Turnbull's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah,
I just don't know what's going to happen because I don't know if he's going to really have a long term future at Celtic. To be honest, Tony, just the fact that he's not really played regularly all the time since Ange Postecoglou's first season, which once again was a time where Celtic were struggling for players. He came in and did well, of course, but since then he's not really been playing regularly. It's been starts here and there, or substitute appearances here and there. His contract's also up at the end of the year. I don't think you want to lose a player like that for nothing. I think he's very talented, and I think in the right team you would maybe look to try and build your side around a player like David Turnbull. But I just think with Celtic that's not going to be the case, to be honest. Doesn't mean that I think he should leave, because I think he has a good option, but I think he's too talented to just be somebody that sits on the bench a lot, and he probably knows he's better than that. So will he move on? Potentially. It's went very quiet on all the Turnbull contract stuff, hasn't it, Tony? There was a wee bit of flutter about it last season, I think, when Andrew's still here. But the fact there's not been anything, and you look at all the guys that are getting signed up long-term deals, but they still had a couple of years. Whereas you'd imagine if it was going to happen with Turnbull, there'd be news about it all the time. It'd be a key option. So maybe he is just going to move on in the summer. But I would like him to stay, because I think he can add stuff. But I just think he knows he could be probably the main guy for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I just think, he started the season, Brendan seemed to put the arm around his shoulder, and he started the season very well, but he's slowly drifted out the first team picture, hasn't he? And there's that kind of triumvirate there, isn't there, of McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly, who seem to be immovable at this minute, especially after Rio Tati's performance last week. But Hazel Finn makes a great point here. This would be the time to bring in more Scottish players with Brendan Rodgers at the helm, because they'll have a great opportunity to improve. I totally agree with that. That's Brendan's shtick, isn't it? He improves players. And Dougie Sharp coming in and saying, are we naive enough to think Celtic don't know more about Scottish players than us? I think you'll find agents and money have a bigger say than Celtic Football Club and where young Scottish talent goes. No, I'm fully aware of that, Dougie. I'm just making the point that I think Celtic are all over the Scottish talent in that scene, but I think Aidan there said it as well. He just doesn't see players that could come in from other Scottish clubs at this moment in time and do a job for Celtic. I think that's
I also appreciate that people know a lot more about younger Scottish players, and I am saying there's not really been any standouts, but I know Lennon Miller's probably the one player that I would have picked out that you touched on, Tony, in terms of players that you've heard plenty about that's been doing well recently. But I just feel like that sort of stage with Turnbull, he came to Celtic, but you could probably include Lewis Ferguson, Doig and Hickey around about that same bracket. I know they're not all the exact same age, Tony, but they were all kind of playing for other teams outside of, Celtic and Rangers at that stage in the league, even though they didn't all come through the exact same age group. Whereas now it feels like the players are just getting pinched even younger. Doak's a prime example, whereas I'm thinking maybe is Turnbull and sort of Ferguson, etc. Are they the last of that sort of generation of players that were still 21, 22, 23 playing in Scotland that had, whereas now it feels like there's a lot of guys that they're playing the youth team, they play 5-10 games for the first team, then they're gone.
Yeah,
clubs so Celtic don't really get the chance to go and get them signed. And even when you do have guys that are young in your academy like Doak, there's been numerous other examples over recent years. Sort of players end up just getting pinched off other Premier League academies as well. So it's difficult. It's probably not as easy as it was 5-10 years ago.
Ryan Porteous and Kevin Nisbet also fall into that category of
players, in particular, of course,
players that were on Celtic's radar, but nothing quite came of it because Celtic decided that maybe he wasn't didn't fit the bill at that moment in time. Porteous now at Watford, Kevin Nisbet now at Millwall, and holding their own by all accounts.
Yeah, Nisbet, I think, always looked a tidy player. I would have been happy that if Celtic got him in as an option, they also wouldn't get in ahead of Kyogo. And I think Ode's also been a good bit of background noise, I think, there, Tony. I don't know if you're able to but yeah, I think it was I think Nisbet would have been a good addition to Celtic. I don't have any doubt about that, but it's just one of those ones that he wasn't going to come in and play ahead of Kyogo, was he? So first team football might have been a factor for him as well. So it's one of those ones in terms of Nisbet, to be honest. But I think Nisbet is a good talent, Tony, and I also was a bit ashamed to see he'd pulled out of the Scotland squad, but I think it's one of those ones that he wasn't going to be first choice, was he? At Celtic, no way with Kyogo being there because he's a superior player. So I'm not saying, I don't know if Celtic were ever fully interested in him, but it may have been a hard sell for him to come in and be a number two for over the next few years.
Yeah, it's just an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think everybody loves to see Scottish talent coming through and loves to see academy players breaking through, but we've not had that at Celtic since Welsh, really, have we? And there's always been high hopes for the likes of Rocco Vata and others, but they've just not happened to make that breakthrough, which is nobody's fault, really, but I think it's just the fact that Celtic do have a healthy, decent squad of players there, and a lot of them have been brought from the Asian market since Ange came in, and from other places, and they're all doing well and making an impact. So it kind of shuts the door down a wee bit, doesn't it, for young Scottish talent?
Yeah, it does to an extent. I think there will always be a need for, Scottish players purely just because of European quotas, Tony. And I know that's such a boring
Of course, yeah.
phrase to use because you would rather that you're signing everybody to come in and be a first team option. That's probably what you like to think. But at the end of the day, there is going to be players that are given contracts or are brought in to sort of make up numbers, really, just because you need. I think it's eight Scottish players, either homegrown players anyway. So somebody like James McCarthy does fit that. I know he's not in the European squad, but he would have fitted that quota because he obviously came through at Hamilton, even though he's a Republic Island international. So there is always going to be a need for players that can make up the numbers. It's just, I think it's just so difficult now. The top talents are just, sometimes they're not even having a full season playing in Scotland. They're away. Sometimes they don't even make a first team appearance and they're away. Or Ben Doak, who he only made a few appearances for Celtic, didn't he? So yeah. I think it's just hard to sort of get the best Scottish talent, I think, really, because they just get pinched so early, 16, 17, and if they're getting offered to play for Premier League academies, they're probably just not going to choose Scottish clubs unless they're getting guaranteed first team football, which you can't always really offer to a 16-year-old, can you? Because you're not going to build a team around them.
And I look at the young talent that's already there, Aidan, and struggling to get game time, like Odin, Thiago Holm, Bernardo, in that midfield at this minute. So it's Celtic are well stocked with midfielders. Another central defensive midfielder possibly coming in. Maybe Rodgers has a plan for Jung if he did come in. But Iwata also struggling to get game time. These are all talented players. From what little we've seen of them, we all still think that they are well capable of doing a job. Yet, as I say, that kind of McGregor, Hitachi, O'Reilly seems to be the kind of favoured three in the midfield at the minute, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think after those three, it's not clear who the next options are behind them. It could be a variety of players, and that probably is a problem longer term. As much as they're all three of them are signed up in big contracts in the next 18 months, in particular, Hitachi and O'Reilly might not be there, Tony. So you do have to have either targets in mind that you think can come in and challenge them while they're still here, similar to a Matt O'Reilly, Tom Roderick situation from a couple of years ago. Who can then come in and take their position whenever they move on, because I think we all accept they're not going to be at Celtic for the next 5 or 6 years. It's obviously brilliant they had the contract signed recently, but it's just the nature of the transfer market. So at the moment, maybe Iwata is going to start playing more. I don't know, he's not really been involved. Probably more likely would be Odin Thiago Holm if you were picking a guy that's going to be an option that can come in just because he has had more game time. But it is difficult, and I think the squad does need a bit of rotation. As much as I still think there's plenty of positions that can be filled and have more depth, there is a lot of guys that need to be moved on as well, and that can be a big part of the next two transfer windows, Tony. As much as I know you and Ryan and I all agree that Celtic still have a lot more work to do in terms of strengthening the squad, a big part could be a lot of players going out the door as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of rotation, Gustav Lagerbielke, it's not just midfielders, Aidan, it's central defenders as well, and we seem to be well stocked for them at this moment in time too. And Gustav Lagerbielke speaking when he's on international duty, and he was talking about squad rotation, and he said, there have been many matches that I've had to play a lot. I think it's about rotation, and that we have a lot of centre-backs competing, and that he, as in Brendan Rodgers, wants to see everyone. He says, I've had to play a lot and feel that it's gone well, and that's the most important thing. I am very happy with my first time at Celtic, and I think it has gone very well. So it's not something I've thought about or I'm worried about. Everyone is friendly, and so is Brendan Rodgers. He's been very helpful, and he is a good trainer. Give me a sec.
Yeah, well, Tony goes to deal with that. Yeah, I think on Lagerbielke's quotes, guys, it's clear that he is going to be a player that's probably, when everybody's fit, Lagerbielke, Tony, I'm just saying, he is going to be a player when everybody's fit, that probably is making sporadic appearances. He just continues to sort of ease in at Celtic. The plan would never have been for him to play this many games. Nowhere near it. If everybody was fit, you might have found he'd only made a few appearances by this time. They would have mostly probably been off the bench. It was clear that Carter Vickers and Navarowski, after it was confirmed Starfelt was going to be going, was the plan as the main sort of central defensive partnership. So you would have to imagine that Lagerbielke would have just been an option off the bench. It's a shame that he came in. There has been some games he struggled. That I thought, even though he had that thing at Ibrox, there was also the goal that didn't stand, and all was a debate about that. In the end, I think it was correct decision. It was a foul. But overall, in that game, he had wee shaky moments. I thought he was okay as well, but Scales has clearly been the standout player. Then obviously there was the game against Feyenoord, they got sent off. He has struggled a bit. Probably that combined with the fact that Scales just came at the fore, when maybe out of those two, people were hoping Lagerbielke was going to be the one taking a bit of leadership. It's clearly been another way. I think that and the injuries has led to him being exposed a wee bit. He's definitely not somebody I'd be writing off anytime soon. I'm glad to hear that he doesn't feel that he's sort of been dropped out of the plans. It's just a general rotation thing.
Peter King, Tony, are you in Central Station? No, I'm in the reception at the Herald, and I have my laptop open with a microphone and I'm speaking, yet still people continue to come in the reception and are being as loud as they can with doing the Dom Jolly act. So my apologies. I hope it's not spoiling your enjoyment. Tony is waiting on the bell, ding ding. Are you in a hotel, Tony? No, it's a big swanky office, and
it's a busy building, isn't it, Tony?
Yeah, and we come down here because the reception's better, because upstairs, as Aidan has known to his cost, he's ended up in a room that looks like a lift shaft, hence the nickname Shaft, all that kind of stuff. So
you're right, Tony. It's a lot better. The reception is a lot better.
Yeah, this is where we get the best reception, but obviously people come in and they're barking down the phone and stuff like that, and you try and think that they'll be, be sensible. They walk in, they see somebody sitting there talking in front of a laptop. They might think that they're actually doing a bit of work, i.e. like a podcast. But hey, there you go. Marquee, it's entertaining, Tony. And that's one word for it, yeah. It's also annoying. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, guys, that's over half an hour. It's International Week. We're trying to kind of eke out the subjects on a daily basis, aren't we, Aidan? Because not that it dries up whenever you're talking about Celtic, but we wish Callum McGregor well tonight. Scotland plays Spain. We hope he can play his part and help guide Scotland through to the European Championships. I had the pleasure the other day of going out to talk to King Kenny Douglas at Hampden, and that never loses its appeal. I just regressed to that wee boy who started watching Kenny Douglas in 76, 77, and whose heart was broken when he left, but he still manages to put a smile on my face. So, and it's one of life's privileges doing stuff like that, and all that appeared in the paper and online yesterday. And yeah, it's as I say, we never take things for granted, and we appreciate all your comments today. Sorry about the Central Station element, Peter King. No, I know it was a joke, Peter. It just gets annoying for it. It's like a main thoroughfare in the reception, but hey, there you go. Desark and well done, Tony. The things you do for the boys, yeah, cheers. But yeah, I mean that was quite a buzz, Aidan, doing that. Going to speak to a football legend. You never tire of that. You never tire of speaking there and picking their brains. And he was talking about his goal against Spain. For those of an older generation who remember it in 1984, it was an absolute belter. But there you go. So, but yeah. So we, as I say, during the week, during the international break, it kind of not so much dries up. It's everybody craves that club football fix, don't they, Aidan?
They do indeed. I mean, obviously, I've been lucky. I know maybe not everybody will fall in at the bracket in the comments here, because I know we have a lot of international viewers, but Scotland has also been doing really well recently. So
Yeah.
Probably been enjoying the international breaks over the last 2 years more than I did in the previous 15, Tony, anyway. But yeah, obviously good luck to Scotland and Cal McGregor tonight. Massive game. A draw's enough for them to qualify for Euro 2024, which is quite mental given there'd still be 2 games left. It'd be a massive achievement. And even if they lose, but I believe if Norway failed to beat Cyprus, that could still be enough. They could put, and then if not, it probably goes to Sunday in terms of deciding whether or not they'll qualify, even though they aren't playing because there's other fixtures on. But good luck to Steve Clark and the team tonight.
Peter King, just hope all the Celtic players come back fit. That's all you can ask for, isn't it? Andrew Gillier saying, good job, Tony. And AGSC Tech saying, what's that UFO doing above your head? They miss nothing. You're a talented bunch, guys, a knowledgeable bunch as well. So, and Francis Green saying history could be made tonight. Yeah, we wish Scotland and Callum McGregor all the best. Hopefully he comes through unscathed, as we say. We'll be back tomorrow for more Celtic chat. I think it's Kevin McKenna that's coming on the Celtic Daz podcast. It'll be Aidan, yeah. Just
no comment.
To get the ageist thing in there before anyone else does, But guys, thank you very much for your company. As I say, I hope the disruptions weren't too annoying. It's getting to me a wee bit, but hey, we soldier on, don't we? Then we try and produce the best that we can. And as you can see, the strap line running along the bottom. We urge you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website. It's £4 for 4 months or £18 for the year, and you help us support top quality football journalism in the process, covering the club you love. And we ask you to click that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to our new Celtic Way morning briefing sponsors, MPH Group, who specialise in plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathrooms, as you can see from the top there. And MPH Group the morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist, covering all mainland Scotland. And every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. All the links are in the description of this morning briefing, phone numbers and all the social media links to MPH. So we thank them for that. Aidan, I hope the trip to the dentist wasn't too scary and he didn't do too much to you, but you seem to be still smiling, so it must have went well. And I thank you for your contribution today. Stellar in front of some kind of, some background noise. But top man, thank you for keeping it going. I appreciate that. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care and all the best.